Facebook friends who've come to join us this morning. And please, if you could turn off the number 8 mic, that would be really helpful. Thank you. Our first thing that we've got for you this morning is a video. I wanted to share with you a little bit about the bowerbird, but you really can't get this without seeing a bowerbird. So I found a video of a bowerbird. This one comes from the BBC. It's the Natural World. And this segment is filmed by Glenn Throfo and Neil Brumhall. So I encourage you to enjoy this little clip.
Meet Bowerbird, a playboy of this Australian forest. And the structure is his bower, an arbour designed only for seduction. Close by, a rival is busy at another bower of sticks, an alternative attraction for local females. He works hard at tidying this centrepiece of his territory, fastidiously arranging his collection of feathers, leaves, insects, and small shells. This playboy has a particular liking for objects that match the colour of his eyes and plumage, including blue berries, which he chews and then paints as a salivary mixture onto the twigs of his bachelor pad. He's an artist working hard to impress a passing female. Excitement grips him. Now he must find a jewel to entice her down. Perhaps his favourite leaf will do the trick. Finally, he offers her a berry. It glows like a pearl of great price. But she's not impressed. Ah well, back to the drawing board. The showcase must be improved, the structure strengthened, the artwork touched up. Unless he can attract her into this avenue between the twigs, he cannot mate. Bowerbird's performance was not to her taste, but his rival's bower seems to have immediate sex appeal. And this neighbouring bowerbird is all too ready to captivate her with his seductive display. She is mesmerised by his artistry, but he must hold her attention until he can circle round behind her to consummate the occasion.
Okay, I don't know where that feedback is coming from. The reading that I have for you is from the end of Darwin's second book, The Descent of Man, and selection regarding with sex. Although we have some positive evidence that birds appreciate bright and beautiful objects, as with the bowerbirds in Australia, and although they certainly appreciate the power of song, yet I fully admit that as it is astonishing that the females of many birds and some mammals should be endowed with sufficient taste to appreciate ornaments, which have reason to attribute to sexual selection, And this is even more astonishing when the case of reptiles, fish, and insects. The reader who has taken the trouble to go through several chapters devoted to sexual selection will be able to judge how far the conclusions at which I arrived are supported by sufficient evidence. Those who admit to the principles of sexual selection will be led to the remarkable conclusion that the nervous system not only regulates most of the existing functions of the body, but has indirectly influenced the progressive development of various bodily structures and of certain mental qualities: courage, pugnacity, perseverance, strength and size of body, weapons of all kinds, musical organs, both vocal and instrumental, bright colors and ornamental appendages, all have been indirectly gained by one sex or the other through the exertion of choice, the influence of love and jealousy, and the appreciation of the beautiful in sound, color, or form. And these powers of the mind manifestly depend on the development of the brain. Here in the readings. The meditation that I have is called Darwin's Dream by Bradley Nordell. It's a poem about the wonder and beauty of evolution. And it's a little subtle, so I encourage you to just kind of go with different images that you experience as you listen to it. Let us turn inward to receive these words. How many dreams of dreams have we woken up to? Does it ever stop? The gravity of wants and worlds aching? Does it ever cease? The constant voice saying you must? A progeny flung across supersonic valleys. I have sat and watched under a microscope. Must mutations from prairie land to seafloor and desert basin, and I have peered into hydrothermal spheres, a world spun on proton engines that single atomic act spawned thousands more, bifurcating into chaos, collapsed into formless, meandering, tree-limb thoughts. And I wonder, in all of them, do you sit perched on that tree limb, singing your songs of intimacy and remembrance, beckoning timeless love as I dance and show you my striped color prance, a ballet written by codes without mind or sight? Those hollow tapping of rhythm, will you stay or fly away to see the dawning of tomorrow's light? Aren't we just puppets following four-part acts, strung like pearls on a billion-year double necklace? And in this grave, and in his grave, Darwin seeks those daunting, infinitely diverse, forever struggling, evolving dreams. Let us take these words and our own thoughts, reflections, and prayers into a time of silence. People love the famous quote by Darwin, "The sight of a feather in a peacock's tail, whenever I gaze at it, makes me sick." Such extravagance didn't fit well with his theory of natural selection. Darwin well understood how the beak of a finch could change its shape and size depending on the seeds available in different regions of the Galapagos Islands. This was the core of the idea of fitness and adaptability that drove natural selection. But expending the enormous resources the peacocks do to make such an impressive display of feathers, a display that made the bird more vulnerable to predation, didn't make sense to him. Didn't make sense until he developed his theory of sexual selection. The most obvious approach to sexual selection was males competing and fighting with each other to gain and defend a female or a brood of females. The strength, horns, antlers, claws, cunning, and courage of the males demonstrated traits that a female could appreciate. This demonstration of fitness meshed with his theory of natural selection. What didn't fit so well was the second theory of sexual selection. Females want qualities in males that they experience as attractive. For birds, that might be the beauty of their song, the visual appeal of their coloring, the beauty of their courtship dance or gestures, the building and the decorating of a bower. Some quality or behavior the female finds beautiful. The evolution of these beautiful traits is driven by the desire of the female who selects a sexual partner driven by these preferences repeated over generations. You might remember that Darwin wasn't the only person thinking about natural selection. So was his contemporary, sometimes collaborator, and also competitor, Alfred Wallace. Wallace didn't like sexual selection because it deviated too far from natural selection. The randomness of what females liked bothered him. He didn't believe birds could make aesthetic decisions, didn't have the brains for it. It also bothered him that females would oversee the direction of evolution rather than the males. Wallace and Darwin debated this back and forth until Darwin's death, never agreeing. Wallace, 14 years younger, outlived him and continued to write against his theory. He was able to bury Darwin's ideas about sexual selection for another 100 years until their resurgence about 50 years ago. Still, evolutionary biologists rankle at beauty driving female choice. The prevailing competing view advocated by Wallace is that the elegant displays of color, song, sound, and dances persuade the female of the fitness of the male. Any male who can throw off that much energy on ornamental bling must be made of really good genetic stock. It tracks the idea in people of the attractiveness of wealth displays as signaling that they can be good providers for their partners, which may or may not be true. Some female choice, however, has made some males less fit. A good example is the Argus pheasant. The ornate, incredibly beautiful, ornate patterns on their great plumes and extended wing size prevent flight in these birds. The pattern is only displayed during courtship. Female choice has evolved this beautiful display of feathers in this ornamentation over many generations that seem to serve no purpose but to please the females during the courtship at the expense of functional wings. The things we do for love. Now, there is a great deal of variety in species and how they go about mating. The process of evolution is hardly consistent here, but there are interesting patterns that emerge that could be telling us something about the nature of consciousness, even the driving principles of life itself. These fascinating patterns were what kind of drew me to want to talk about this subject in the first place, because our theme this month is nurturing beauty. Many bird species pair up after a courtship ritual with the male bird protecting the family. But some species can get very aggressive with males ganging up and attacking females to try to mate with them, often harming and even killing them. This is especially true of a couple of duck species. And anyone who has watched roosters chasing the hens around will note the aggressive nature of their mating process. What is quite clear is the females do not like this kind of approach to mating. And the logic is quite clear. Males are driven to mate mostly with any female that will have them. They are not selective. Rather, they are just looking for the opportunity to impregnate any female they can. Most males will not reject a receptive female because they don't like how they look or sound. Most of the time, it is the female that is selective. And it makes sense why they would be, because they want their offspring to be desirable. What they like in a male is what they want in their offspring. Unlike the males, they are thinking ahead to future generations and their mating success. Whatever excites the female is likely to be true for their offspring, increasing the odds of successful reproduction. Bowerbirds are such a wonderful example of this evolutionary adaptation to support female desire. The bower is carefully constructed to create a safe space for the female to observe the male. The male can only approach her from behind. If she doesn't like what she sees, she can just fly off before the male can circle around the back of the bower. Everything about the bower is designed to appeal to her passions for her favorite colors and objects, and his mating display and his exciting dance. And he makes these really odd sounds too that they seem to love. Male bowerbirds don't mature for 7 years. They practice their courting dances and building these bowers for 7 years before they get a chance to actually consummate the act. So another fascinating anecdote about birds, which I love this, is very interesting, is the gradual disappearance of penises in birds. Only 3% have them, and 97% do not. Most birds copulate by touching their cloaca, which is a general purpose exit point for waste and for males, the sperm, but it's also the entrance point in the female's body for reproduction as well as for waste going out. It's an interesting footnote to know what the Latin word for it, which means sewer. Without a penis for sexual activity to be productive, there needs to be more cooperation and definitely less violence. Not that it doesn't happen. There are a few duck species. These ducks are really bad news. They have these penises that can be as long as their bodies. But the trend certainly is for bird penises to be selected out and disappearing. This whole area of research into sexual selection is heating up today because we now can peek inside the brains of animals and insects with this fMRI machine. The simple models of fruit flies and guppy brains, scientists can analyze down to the single neural line more precisely how to make the preferences that are expressed in brain activity. Darwin didn't have any of this at his disposal. He didn't have DNA, he didn't understand how genes worked, and he didn't understand the neural brain activity that's based on sensory excitation. Much fascinating research is happening right now, and I wish I had time to go into talking about more of it. But the place that I'd like to go now with evolution and beauty is merely to suggest that the preference of females for beauty, which we see evidence of in evolution in the extravagant qualities of different species, that point to something about the nature of life itself. Ornithologist Kim Boswick puts it plainly this way: the peahen has wanted that big old tail. She wanted the show. She wanted the blue chest. She has, at some time or another in the last, I don't know, maybe thousands of years, she has wanted everything you see on him, from the fancy feathers to the white skin around the eye to the iridescent blue. The shaking, it's what she has wanted in the past. And of course, the question is, could this just be a random process that just happened? Bostwick says, no way could you get the fine nanostructured iridescent colors in their feathers that would have required 42 interacting genes across 5 different chromosomes to randomly come together to give you that iridescent blue. That female drive for the beautiful suggests to me an expression of the spirit of life itself. Beauty has long been the subject of philosophers and theologians' speculation. Plato recognized beauty as a driving force of love, the divine as the source of beauty through the ideal forms. The closer the reflection of the ideal form, the greater the beauty. Aristotle got more concrete, suggesting beauty had qualities like symmetry and order. Both Plato and Aristotle saw beauty in virtue and in moral character. More modern views of beauty have recognized the subjective nature of it, which weaken the link of beauty to some eternal template. But the Romantics, who inspired our transcendentalist ancestors, were loath to abandon beauty to mere chance preference. The connection to truth and the divine enchanted them, as in John Keats' beautiful line from Ode on a Grecian Urn: beauty is truth, truth beauty. That is all ye know the earth on earth, and all ye need to know. Many Unitarian Universalists have been drawn to process theology, inspired by the writings of the mathematician Alfred North Whitehead. It recognizes the nature of existence as constructed out of events rather than substance. God in this system doesn't control existence, but is merely a relational influence on the events that make up reality. God in this system doesn't control existence, but is merely a relational influence on the events that make up reality. When events follow the divine intention, the outcome might be described as beautiful. Thus, to participate in the creative process of the beautiful might be described as responding to the will of God. Yet there is no compelling force for God's will to be chosen. We can freely choose the beautiful as we open to the endless creative process that is constantly happening in every moment. Growing and developing this inner recognition of beauty becomes the work of a lifetime. What I find stimulating is seeing the same process happening in evolution. I wonder if by studying what drives sexual selection in evolution, we might learn something about the pursuit of beauty, the pursuit of the divine aim at work in us and in all life. Seeing beauty as a force in evolution gives wonderful affirmation to the artistic process itself. Our mechanistic, materialistic, survival-driven rat race, so many of us feel trapped in. The lure of beauty is a refreshing source of meaning and inspiration for our lives. Beauty is much more than what appears on the surface. It is life reaching for purpose and meaning, offering a way for an inner satisfaction that the outer world may not, maybe cannot provide. On this Labor Day, the first day of May, let us remember that we are so much more than cogs in the machinery of work. Remember the words from the song Bread and Roses, small art and love and beauty, their drudging spirits knew. Yes, it is bread we fight for, but we fight for roses too. So my encouragement for you this morning is to let go of an externally defined static sense of beauty and turn toward an inner recognition of the beautiful. Much as female birds we've described trust their inner knowing of beauty as they see it and choose their mates. None of them know the result of their choice in shaping their species towards the beautiful, but they recognize the direction they wish to go. So we too can develop our inner awareness of beauty and use it to guide our lives. Who knows what the result will be over many generations? My claim today is it will be more meaningful than making the focus of one's life the survival of the fittest. So be it.
Good morning, I'm Peggy Sherman and I'm the Service Associate today. An important way we celebrate life each Sunday is by offering an opportunity to practice generosity. Members and friends support our congregation with an annual pledge paid throughout the year. Another way to support the good work of this congregation is by making a generous contribution as we pass the plate, or via one of the options shown on the next slide. If you're joining us virtually, you can click on the tiny URL link in the chat window to contribute, or you can send a text to the number shown on the screen. The examples show how to label your text to indicate the amount and purpose of your gift. Now we say goodbye to our Facebook viewers. Consider joining us on Zoom next time, or visit us in person at 405 Washington Avenue in Albany. You can find more information at albanyuu.org. And our offertory music is Bread and Roses by Mimi Farina and performed by Olga Martinez. And we welcome the chance to greet each other. Congregants on Zoom will be offered virtual breakout rooms.
I'm going to choose one more stone for all the joys and sorrows that have been left unspoken and let us hold all that we've heard and felt in our hearts. My prayer of affirmation comes from Mary Oliver, Mornings at Blackwater. Let us turn inward to receive these words. For years, every morning, I drank from Blackwater Pond. It was flavored with oak leaves and also, no doubt, the feet of ducks. And always it assuaged me from the dry bowl of the very far past. What I want to say is that the past is the past, and the present is what your life is. And you are capable of choosing what that will be, darling citizen. So come to the pond, or the river of your imagination, or the harbor of your longing, and put your lips to the world and live your life. So be it. Let us sing together a wonderful concluding hymn, Life is the Greatest Gift of All.
As we extinguish the chalice, please join in the words shown on the screen. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. And our closing words are from George G. Brooks. May the love that gives to life its beauty, the reverence that gives to life its sacredness, and the purpose that gives to life its deep significance be strong within each of us and lead us into ever-deepening relationships with all of life. Amen. And our thanks go to our musician, Olga Martinez, our ushers, Kristen Abbas, Kathy Harris, and John Sherman, our pastoral care associates, Sharon Babila and Randy Rosette. I'm your service associate. Our welcomer is Amy Lent. Our greeter was Chuck Manning. Office support from Tammy Goddard and Patience Pichette. Technical support from Chris Jensen and Dick Dana and Peter Meixner. And flowers were given and arranged by Patty Jo Newell and Bruce Rogers in loving memory of Jessie Mott Rogers, 1978 to 1999, who we hold close in our hearts. And we have some announcements. We have coffee hour in a new way, as so many things are new in the pandemic. We'll be outside the sanctuary steps in front. And the ministry and operations team is sponsoring this, but we have far beyond simple treats. We have wonderful treats shared with us by the hotel and family and the reception committee from yesterday as well, so please come. Green Sanctuary Committee is meeting today at 11:45 on Zoom. There will be congregational conversations on the 22-23 proposed budget, hosted by the Finance Committee on Sunday, May 15th at 11 and Tuesday, May 17th at 7 p.m. The first both in person and online, and the second on Zoom alone. And ballots for our elections have been mailed to members. We'll see candidate profiles shortly. and we need ballots back by Friday, May 20th. Wine and cheese. See the table outside in the lobby to sign up for this event on Saturday, May 14th. And a reminder that Sunday, May 22nd will be our annual meeting, both in person and on Zoom.